Oh, hey, we are live. What's up, wrestling fans? It's the Two Bros Wrestling Show, where we talk about wrestling news, wrestling topics of interest, and then we close the show with our botch, our performer, and our match of the week. Kevin, how you doing, brother?
Well, Doug, and looking forward to our main event tonight because kind of a twofold. We're going to give our thoughts on night one of the WWE Draft, as well as preview WWE's follow up to WrestleMania. It feels like we were just doing WrestleMania. I know we had our on the road edition, but we really haven't had a regular full length show since pre Mania.
It has been a minute, yeah.
It has been a minute, but we're kind of back at it. Let's see if we remember how to do this.
Did we ever know? Opening bell, let's do this.
All right, the bell still works. That's a good sign. Maybe not as good a sign is starting the news with Vince McMahon. I know I've done that a lot to us, but it's still Vince still cast a wide shadow over the world of wrestling. So I do think that we need to sort of commemorate that we are maybe at the official end of the Vince McMahon relationship with WWE after 55 years. That's because this past week, Vince listed the remainder of his TKO stock for $776 million. Once sold, though, it does mean Vince McMahon, the man who shaped modern pro wrestling in his own image, will no longer have any power of any sort over his creation. Doug, that just is a wild story to me. We knew it would come, but it's still crazy.
It's such a wild story, man. I mean, and 55 years of affiliation. You said it, man. He shaped modern professional wrestling, and now he's completely withdrawn from it. I've heard some really wild speculation that folks have talked about what's going to do with that $2 billion. Is it out of the arena to for him to buy something up? Of course, he can't even think about wrestling for at least a year because he has a year non-compete. So I look forward to Jeff Jarrett and Vince McMahon going into business sometime next year about this time. Global Force McMahon.
What does an 80-year-old do with $2 billion? How much time do you have left to even spend it? And I'd say leave it to the family, but who knows what Vince's current relationship is with his family members.
Exactly. I mean, we didn't see Stephanie on TV or anywhere near WWE until he was gone. And so,
and now very soon to be officially gone, even off the books on the back end of an investor. Yep. One more Vince story before we move on to what on most weeks would have been a headline story, but wanted to get this Vince stuff up first, and that is the attempt to restore his reputation, or at the very least prepare for the storms to come.
Right.
In order to do that, he has enlisted the services of a heavyweight PR firm. Vince McMahon is now the client of Citric and Company, to handle his public image during the upcoming lawsuit that will be played out in the courts by former WWE employee Janelle Grant, who is claiming, of course, sexual mistreatment and trafficking. PR firm's other clients include Kobe Bryant, Pepsi, Make-A-Wish. So we're talking heavyweights among many others. Not sure at this point, especially considering where the trial may go that we don't even know yet. Right. I don't know how much good this is going to do Vince, or to what end, since he's no longer officially involved in wrestling. But hey, he's got him a PR firm.
He does have a PR firm too, and it seems like I heard something this week about either maybe some of the attorneys that are representing him, or maybe it's the PR firm also represented. Was it AAA or CMLL? So some smaller indie. Well, not that either one of those are a smaller indie. Let me reel that back. Let me walk that back. But somebody who went against WWE recently, not like Stephen P. New, but somebody who'd went against them recently. Which is a great show because I learned quite a bit about this, about these allegations and the rebuttal to the allegations by watching his most recent podcast. Super interesting stuff. We should leave a link to that down below and throw some people that way if you're interested in the legal side of this. Very interesting video podcast.
Also something to probably be very aware of the legal side of this, because there is going to be a lot of legal wrestling news over
Yes.
the next year as it relates to WWE and their former relationship with Vince McMahon, and the trials and tribulations continue with Vince McMahon. He may no longer be part of WWE, but they are still, he is
Oh,
still
it's
the
going to linger.
albatross that hangs around their neck.
Absolutely. This is going to linger for a while.
That'll lead me into the next story, which again, on any given week would have been a headline story. This is something that's played out over the last couple of weeks since we have been on air with a regular broadcast. But just because Vince is gone and just because it's the new Triple H era doesn't mean that the annual post-WrestleMania firings are a thing of the past. Not as extensive as in years past, but we have had a series of releases the past few weeks. We would be remiss to not point those out.
I'm not sure what's going on, but one of us just got lost. Did I get lost or did you get lost? Because you're frozen now, and it looks like which one of us is not on the air?
I see us both, and I hear you. Can you hear me, Doug?
That's weird. Is that me, or is that you? It looks like we're having technical difficulty. I don't know if it's me or Kevin, so I'm going to shoot him a text real quick to see which one of us that is. So bear with us, because just like AEW, we're having our own audio technical difficulty.
I think that Doug just answered his own question. I think you probably heard all of that. I'm letting him know that it is him. And I'm sure he will rejoin the program here in just a moment. But while we wait on Doug's return, let's go over those list of releases that have occurred since WrestleMania. Again, not as extensive as in the past, but you'll notice a trend here. And that is, we have, I guess most notably, the former world champion, Jinder Mahal, is gone. As well as the great Cameron Grimes, which is, I really hate that. Xia Li, Veer, and Sangha are gone. Zion Quinn is gone from NXT. And in a surprising move from NXT, Von Wagner is gone. So when I say there's a bit of a trend here, and I know it probably wasn't intentional, but if you look at the folks that are released, you're seeing a lot of the diversity when it comes to the Indian talent and some of the overseas talent that WWE had brought in anticipation for building out their brand into different markets. Here we go. We're bringing Doug back.
Hey,
we got Doug back on the show.
I'm apparently the Serena Deeb of this night's episode.
I can hear you as you faded into the ether, Doug, and then you were just gone.
Well, it's kind of like you were breaking up, like we're one of our AI overlords. You're just kind of beep 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 beep, and then you were just kind of gone. So I didn't know if you were malfunctioning or what was happening there.
Well, we're getting things back on track. While you were away, I just went over the list of releases that WWE had in the last few weeks. Doug, I don't know if any of these surprised you. And as I was telling the folks at home, to me, I think if there's a through line to this, and it's unfortunate, is that a lot of the Indian talent that they had congregated in WWE in hopes of launching an Indian brand of WWE, perhaps an NXT hub in the country of India. I guess it's just unfortunate that never came to be, especially at the expense of what is a lot of the diversity that was on the roster of WWE.
Yeah, I think Cameron Grimes too. That one was unexpected. He has been in NXT a lot, but he came up to SmackDown, but just kind of like hung out there, I guess, and it was more in catering than anywhere. Yeah, they creative literally apparently had nothing for him, and what a heartbreaking, explosion of emotion from him. It was rough.
He went.
I think
he went very public.
Very public with us. What was the guy a few years ago that did something similar and basically got hired back almost immediately? Yeah, a little British guy.
Maybe
was that it?
Maybe by playing his cards correctly here, Cameron Grimes will have a second chance in WWE.
I
You
think
never
so.
know.
I mean, others have been fired and made their way back. I mean, well, Cody fired, or did he just want his release? But
He
HBK
wanted
got
his
fired.
release.
Punk
Yeah.
got fired. I mean,
There's a lot of examples of it not being the end. LA Knight was fired and
yeah,
was brought back. I am trying to think of the NXT UK wrestler that was let go and
I know.
was yeah, it's not. He got let go a second time though, so it didn't
Yes,
work in
he
the
did.
long run, I
It
suppose.
didn't really stick, but
And while we're saying NXT, Doug, I was mentioning that to me, a surprising move on the NXT side was Von Wagner. Not that I was ever a big Von Wagner fan, but he was featured prominently in storylines, was
yes,
considered a main eventer, had a pedigree, a history
yes.
with a second generation wrestler. Just wasn't to be.
I didn't
The
quite
cuts
get that one either, but
the cuts just aren't on screen either, Doug. You might have seen this, that WWE has let go of a lot of behind the scene folks as well. Its head of talent relations, one of its chief
yes,
art directors, maybe most surprisingly was Sue Addison's Atchison. I'm probably
yes.
mispronouncing that, but she's a former Warrior Award recipient who had been with WWE for nearly 4 decades as its
Mm-hmm.
director of community relations, which means her role was instrumental in their whole charity work, partnerships with Make a Wish, all the feel good stuff. She was kind of behind doing that. And so to see her let go, a bit surprising.
Absolutely. I mean, after being there for so very long, but I mean, this is kind of that TKO house cleaning as well as that post mania cleanup that happens every year. So it's just unfortunate that.
Unfortunate. Moving on, New Japan Pro Wrestling has acquired Stardom. The two were sister promotions under the same company owners, but in order to increase operational efficiencies between the two promotions and to reduce redundancies, Stardom will become a wholly owned subsidiary of New Japan beginning June 28th. I don't want to cast aspersions on this because I think that it's a good move overall to make the two organizations closer together. But I think our prior story just goes to show what
Mhm.
really it means when you talk reduction of redundancies and
Exactly.
efficiencies and all of the talk there, the press release. It probably means some folks are getting ready to lose their jobs over in Japan as well.
Unfortunately, I mean, it's it's just a byproduct of. It's almost like healthcare and wrestling are all one and the same now. We're just merging together. Soon, some sort of healthcare organization is just going to buy up some wrestling organizations too, and just make it all one big family because there's safety in numbers.
Safety in numbers. Speaking of numbers, Heels never had the numbers it deserved when it was on Showtime. The wrestling drama was criminally underseen despite great reviews. Now you will have your chance. Heels is coming to a larger platform. Yes, it had been canceled after 2 seasons, but it's soon going to be on the same platform that will be hosting Raw before too very long, and that is Netflix, the world's largest streamer, obviously opening up Heels to a potentially much, much larger audience. Hopefully, if you get more eyes on the 2 great seasons of Heels, if it does well enough, it is not out of the realm of possibility that we would see it revived for season 3 to pay off on that cliffhanger. We won't talk about the cliffhanger if you've not seen it, because you definitely need to go watch it, because I do feel like those numbers, if we can drive numbers to Heels once it is on Netflix, that maybe we get season 3, because everyone involved says that they are interested in continuing the story with more story to tell.
And don't you think too? There's a bigger opportunity with Raw than on Netflix as well, that we start to get
Absolutely.
more talent and more promotional things going on there. Yeah,
Absolutely. More wrestling fans buying, signing
yeah,
into Netflix because of Raw. Go over,
absolutely.
watch Hill. Go over, watch Glow. Let's get a proper
Yes,
conclusion
yes.
to Glow, which was another great series. And while we're talking streaming news, Doug, the Iron Claw which was, of course, the story of the Von Erichs, will finally hit streaming services. I know it was kind of a minor release, didn't make it into all the theaters around the country, wasn't there along in a lot of
Right.
places. But if you have yet to see Iron Claw, definitely it's a recommend. 2 thumbs up from Doug and I. It will be on Max beginning May 10th.
Oh, nice.
And Doug, let's end on this, if you would, before we go to our main event.
Okay.
Darby Allin won't be climbing Mount Everest.
Okay, you were going to cover this. I didn't know if you'd seen this yet. I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh, but it sounds like a joke when you're going. Go ahead.
It does sound like a joke, right? I mean, the reasons
we're talking about.
I know the Daredevil himself, and honestly, it just seems like almost a Darby Allin curse. It's pretty wild. First he injures his foot severely in a match with Jay White prior to stepping away in order to train for Everest. Then he suffered a broken nose, and then finally he was apparently crossing the street in New York with his broken foot and was hit by a bus. No joke, Darby Allin hit by a bus.
And I guess I have to be more mindful of all the jokes I always say about Darby looked like he got hit by a bus walking out of that match. Darby has legit been hit by a bus now. What?
I guess the fact that he can joke about it on Instagram appears that he avoided major injury when it comes to the bus crash itself. But when you talk about someone who has a dream of climbing Everest and all that involves, it has been a series of bad luck for certain here with Darby. But get well soon, Darby.
Absolutely. Watch. Look both ways when crossing the street, brother. We've seen you ragdoll enough in your day job, so don't do it in your leisurely time too.
Hey, Doug, before we hit that main event, I want to bring up a comment here because I don't know the answer here to Scott's question. We haven't seen Jamie, so I don't know if she's hurt. I would presume so, but it is not unusual, unfortunately, for AEW talent to disappear for long periods of time without much in the way of explanation.
This is because talent will just drop off and you're like, wait a minute, where's so-and-so? What's going on? And I'm not sure about Jamie Hayter either. I'm gonna check the dirt sheets right now. And
so Doug is on that. We'll get an answer about Jamie Hayter. And while we do that, I want to move on to our main event. We got a little bit of a two-parter before we get into the majority of what we're here to talk about tonight, and that is a preview of WWE Backlash. I would like to just discuss briefly, if we could, the first night of the WWE Draft, which began on Friday on SmackDown. Doug, I guess as far as takeaways go for me in this instance, just not a lot in the way that actually changed. It in that regard was a little inconsequential. Most of the announcements on the draft were people staying put on the brands that they had been on. I mean, most of these were logical, so in that way, maybe it is good to just shake up the jar and see where everybody lands. Maybe you do make more thoughtful, logical decisions, but it wasn't like these big wow moments that past drafts have attempted.
So I think they did a little bit of table setting with that right up front to kind of enforce that, hey, this is going to be as much about keeping the roster you have as acquiring the talent you want. They're both trying to, our GMs are trying to do both of those things here. So keep that in mind. That table setting was done very early on with Triple H and Cody, like right at the get-go there when the first four were announced. So
to that end, do you like the difference this year in the draft in that champions are not eligible? Because I'll be honest with you, I know it takes away that wow factor of, oh my gosh, they got the big superstar. On the other hand, I always hated that, okay, the tit for tat of, well, they got the Intercontinental Champion, so now the U.S. champion, we have to figure out some way to move him over here, or they got this one version of the women's title, so now we have to move the other version of the women's title to the other show. It kind of forced their hand to do these arbitrary title switches and just kind of goofiness. I kind of like that you're a champion. You've earned the right to stay where you are, and that way they don't have to fabricate these ridiculous storylines in order to make sense of why you have all the champs on one show and not the other, for example.
I do like it I'm kind of in the middle there because I agree. I think it's this it's very ham-fisted. When you get into, oh well, we're going to have to work this person into this now, or maybe trade this. You get into, it's just
Yeah,
forced when you have like a stacked roster where like all your champions are on like SmackDown, and you've got like the Intercontinental Champion is the main champion on Raw now or whatever,
yeah,
or
because there's no world champions anymore.
exactly. They're all over. They're all on the other show, or they're all down at NXT somehow. I don't know, but and I also was really a little disappointed to see that NXT could be called up, but nobody could be NXT couldn't participate in the calling of people and claiming some folks, because I thought that would be kind of interesting to bring some talent just to inject it in there. Like Corbin's been there for a while now, so I think that's
Yeah,
a
and
good
they're moving him
rotation.
back.
Yeah.
I thought that at first, part of what they were attempting to do was reestablish NXT as the third brand, which is something
Yes.
that Triple H definitely wants. And they have done such work with such talent down there. They could easily do that now.
Mm-hmm.
And this draft would be an opportunity, to your point, to start in that direction. And that obviously is not the direction they're going to go, at least via the draft. I did like some of the call ups from NXT. Again, logical. Carmelo Hayes, ready.
Yeah.
The Braun Breaker trade to Raw, makes sense, to put him on the 3-hour show where he has more
Yes.
people to work with and learn from. Again, all logical. I like that they didn't try the whole, like, hey, we're breaking up the Dudley Boys,
Right.
kind of like things in the past where they broke up tag teams and things like that. But the downside, glass half empty way of looking at that in my mind is that it really was inconsequential, even with the supplementary picks that they named later on. Not a lot really to chew on there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing, though, if we had to preview night 2, I would say that more consequential moves are needed to make this draft seem worthwhile. And I think more consequential moves will happen because, one, not only is Raw still the A show, it's the 3-hour show. So you're going to have a much larger pool of talent to pull from. And I think they may hear some of these complaints that have happened since Friday on not being at stake yet.
Right.
And they may, as a result, kind of make sure that they, even if on the fly, change that around some.
Yeah. What do you think about the tribal chief just withdrawing from the draft? And does that take the entire blood? I'm confused about that. Does that take the entire bloodline off the table for now? How
But
exactly does that work?
the bloodline got drafted. They
I
stayed on
missed that.
SmackDown.
Did I miss
Yeah.
that? When did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah. So Solo and it was one of those things that I guess is a holdover of past drafts that I hated, is that, you know, if you were a part of a faction, your whole faction or your
Right.
tag team can go with you. And I'm a single pick, but you're like 5 guys somehow. But yeah, Solo stayed on SmackDown along with, Tonga and, well, basically it's at the Bloodline,
Well,
whoever that might all be.
and that's my question now too. Is Roman Reigns' bloodline whose bloodline is it? Is what's going on?
Yeah,
What's happening there?
I find it interesting. I'm not sure yet what I think about Roman just being able to take himself out, because it's not like he's a champion. So has he earned the right to not participate? Could AJ Styles have also decided, like, I just choose to withdraw from the draft and stay where I am? Part of what the draft is, apparently, is staying on the brand that you're currently on,
Right.
if that
Yeah.
is indeed the general manager's prerogative. Kind of changes the game when somebody apparently has a chance to just say, no, thanks, I'm not participating at all. I guess that
Right.
makes him a free agent, which might make it interesting when he comes back, but he has to
Mhm.
obviously land on SmackDown again, because if that's where the bloodline is, that's where the story remains for him at this point.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and of course, I guess the question is, what is the story with the bloodline? What is that? But
What is that? Other than
what is that?
there's a new tribal chief in town
Is there?
making decisions. I don't know.
don't
Paul
know.
seems, it depends on if
Solo's
who's
around or
around.
who's around or who Paul's on the phone with?
I like where that's going, which is another reason why you got to make sure that Roman comes back he is taking a much deserved break, so maybe it is good to take the mystery of what Brandy's on off the table. So I'll
Yeah.
give them some grace here and say, okay, you've earned the right after being champ for like 8 billion years to just say, hey, I'm not participating, and then come back on whatever show you darn well please.
Yeah, and I guess it does make sense too from a kayfabe where if we're going to keep him off for a few months for him to do some other things and just kind of rest and recuperate now because that killer schedule he's been on for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
But let's it doesn't make sense because whoever gets to go first should logically go after him and say, I want that guy on my show. That should be the first pick for whoever got to go first. And if
Which
you're
is
not doing
why
it,
I guess it makes sense to just before they even
just
start picking to say you can't pick him.
yeah, exactly. So from a storyline, I
I
get
did
it,
I
but
I
not
did
sure I
like
like it.
that if because in the past it's usually been you pick the champion, right? Like I
Right.
want this world champion, well I'll pick the other world champion. I thought it was pretty cool that they went with a female performer
Yep.
as the first pick of the draft. So congratulations to Bianca. That
Yes.
is a feather in your cap for sure. One that's earned.
Yes.
But yeah, let's all see how it plays out tomorrow. And then on our next week's show, we will talk a lot more about how the draft shakes out. So we're just not going to grade it based on one night. We're going to let it play out. Also playing out next weekend, Doug, is our main event topic,
Yeah.
and that is a review or preview, rather, of the follow-up to WWE's WrestleMania. Thank goodness it's not called WrestleMania Backlash. It's back to being just Backlash. Or
Thank you, Triple H.
I don't know how to backlash in French, Doug. So I'll just say that this is the first premium live event to take place in France.
You mean you're not going with Backlash?
I should have just gone with Backlash. That would have been easier than trying to figure out what Backlash was in French. But also, don't you all forget out there that it is in France, and you will need to figure out exactly what time that is if you're watching live. Doug and I are probably going to watch later on demand because I imagine it's going to be very early in the morning. So do not do that to yourself. Wait until the afternoon and watch Backlash at your leisure, avoiding spoilers. We're not giving spoilers. We're giving predictions, Doug.
We're the anti-Haymans.
Well, I don't ever want to be the anti-Haymans.
I know, right?
We're Paul Heyman guys here.
We're Paul Heyman guys, absolutely. Kevin,
That gives us a good jumping off point.
I've got a list of just 5 matches here. Is this right?
They'll probably add one more match before showtime, but I got 5 matches here, and that's probably right if they get 6 in on what tends to be tighter shows for Triple H. But we're talking Paul Heyman, so let's start with that Bloodline match, Doug. We got Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga, who has already made just quite the impression. And my goodness, if we knew Solo would be this entertaining, they should have let him start speaking a long time ago. It's been great, man. But they're taking on the OGs here with Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. You can't have the Bloodline lose, though, can you?
You can't.
Not
you cannot
this
have
early on.
No, you cannot have Tama Tonga lose his first match in WWE. You can't have Solo Sikoa as this pseudo tribal chief or whatever he is lose. Orton
and undercut everything if they lost in their first real pay-per-view contest.
I mean, if we're gonna hold off on Jacob Fatu being, debuting, maybe we do it at the pay-per-view where he's the run-in to save the bloodline, a la like old school bloodline, in every other bloodline match. I don't know, but they can't lose. Can't.
If you're going to continue the bloodline story of this match, it would make sense to do something along those lines. So yeah, they win, they don't win fairly, or it's a no contest. If they don't want Randy Orton and Kevin Owens going down on pay-per-view, it's very likely that this one does end up in a DQ or something along those lines. But definitely, you're not getting the bloodline losing.
Or you make the two of them so dominant, which is very much unlike other bloodline main events where there's always some, or not this is going to be a main event, but other bloodline matches where there's always some sort of shenanigans and everything. You just have Tama Tonga and Solo Sikoa go in there and just wreck the place, destroy Orton, destroy Owens, and just walk out, and just done and done. And it establishes a very new precedent for the bloodline where you don't need the numbers, you've got the power. It could go like that.
There's many there's many ways to go with this, but the way that I think Doug and I are both agreeing it will not go is with
Right.
either of those Samoans going out on their backs to a 1, 2, 3.
Agreed. Agreed.
How about the women's tag team championship, Doug? We've got the Kabuki Warriors, your champions, defending against Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. Baby faces here have kind of continued their relationship that they established prior to WrestleMania. I didn't know if that would be a one-time thing, but since it isn't, I'm going new champions here.
Absolutely. You have to go. We're going new champions here because then we're going to have a decent reign of these two with the women's titles, right? And they can move around then because they're the one champion that's not locked into some place. So they can continue to move around, but this will lead eventually to Bianca Jade because that is a
Yeah.
money match right there. When that team breaks up, oh my. Oh my.
This might be the female version of the 80s mega powers where you had Randy and Hulk, who are not obviously meant to be together, but will eventually implode because one, no one can beat them except themselves eventually.
Yes.
And these two are such powerhouses. There's no way I think that the Kabuki Warriors can go over here. And that's no offense to the Kabuki Warriors, who have been extremely entertaining, but Damage Control, as entertaining as they've been, feels like they're kind of done.
Yep.
And so I think that this is the next step to that castle crumbling down. And to Doug's point, the beginning of what is, I think, going to be a long storyline that's being told in an eventual breakup between Jade and Bianca, and what's going to be a fantastic must-see match. Might ride this all the way out till next year's Mania.
That's exactly what I was just thinking. You establish, you build, you plant seeds, you start a slow burn, and by WrestleMania, they are ready to kill each other. Well, that's how I'd book it anyway.
Ready.
What we got next?
Let's talk about the former member of Damage Control having her first major championship title defense. You got a three-way match for the women's championship. Bayley, the champion, defending against Naomi and Tiffany Stratton. Doug, I'm saying it here. Bayley is not losing in her post-Mania match, but Tiffany Stratton's not losing either. Naomi's taking this pinfall.
I agree. It's not quite Tiffy time yet, but we will get there. But yeah, Naomi's taking the pin here. We're probably going to be lockstep on every one of these matches, but yeah,
Again,
Bayley can't lose already. She can't.
It's kind of like we were talking about with the draft. Sometimes it's okay to not just do things for the shock value of it. Sometimes it's okay to be logical. Logically speaking, Bayley is a completely over champion who just had her feel good moment. It's too soon to lose that. On the other hand, it's way too soon to see Tiffy time snuffed out because there's so much potential there, and the fans are hugely in support of Tiffany Stratton too, despite being on the heel side of things. Odd person out in this is the good soldier of Naomi, who can play this off into a relationship breakdown between her and Bayley if they want to go that route with it. But
absolutely,
Tiffy time she'll get herself a singles match for the championship down the line, and then we might have a harder time predicting who's going to win that one. That's how talented this young lady is.
Yeah, it's just not Tiffy time yet.
Not Tiffy time yet, but stay tuned.
Stay tuned, absolutely.
Let's talk about someone else whose time it may or may not be, Doug. I think that one of the more shocking things to come out of WrestleMania is that your World Heavyweight Champion would be Damian Priest. Even though I like it, but Priest versus Jey Uso, who has done a good job of establishing himself as a singles wrestler and as a face, a main eventer. But I also don't think that Damian Priest is going to lose right out the gate either.
See, that's me. I don't think they're going to take the belt off this champion either. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, why let this man carry around a Money in the Bank for a year, finally cash it in, only to take it away like a month later? I don't think it's
It
happening.
wouldn't make a lot of sense.
No.
But I also think there's some value in the parity of having one of your world champions be a face and another be a heel. And so I
Mhm.
think that having a heel champion on the 3 hour show gives a lot of opportunity for baby faces on the
Mhm.
3 hour show to rise. You know, your Brum Breakers who just got traded over there. Like, there's a lot of cool matches that have not been seen with a Damian Priest on top. And as much as I like Jay and I think he's done a great job of establishing himself as a solo act, much like Tiffy, not his
Yeah.
time, even though he's
Right.
been around a while. It doesn't mean he's out of the picture, but I do think he's taken the loss here.
He's taken the law, and he's got the numbers game against him here, which is something he knows all about, being a former Bloodline member. Even though no, I almost called them the Dark Order. That's not right, or the New Order.
Wrong,
The
wrong
House,
brand, wrong brand.
the House of Purple is, they're dwindling. Mommy's gone, and Dom is on the shelf. He's got a broken wing or a lame wing, but we still got a couple of guys there to help out Damien and push him through to victory.
That actually is a good point, though. I mean, with both the injuries and everything else that's besetting Judgment Day, doesn't that make it even more likely that Damian Priest needs to sort of hold the flag for that group while everyone gets healthy by maintaining the championship for a while, having a strong run?
Absolutely. They lose those unified tag team titles. Mommy has to drop the title to, go and get her shoulder fixed and be out for months on end. And then Dom is just on the shelf now with like a house show injury. So, and he's going to be out for quite a while, it sounds like. It's not a good time for Judgment Day.
Not a good time for Judgment Day. It will be a good time for Damian Priest, though, who is going to continue to be your world heavyweight champion after Backlash. And Doug, we haven't been in disagreement on any match thus far. So I guess this means that you think that AJ Styles is
Right here.
beating Cody Rhodes in the WWE Championship match.
As long as Cody doesn't launch himself off some ropes again in Carmelo's general direction, he should be okay as long as he doesn't do that.
And there's no way in the world, again, logically speaking, AJ Styles will be a great opponent to get a great match. He and Cody, two veterans working together in is a fresh contest, something we've not seen. AJ earned this by winning a triple threat. That is your prize, AJ Styles, because Cody Rhodes has quite obviously not just been made the champion. This isn't just the finishing of Cody's story at WrestleMania. Cody is the new face of WWE.
Absolutely.
You don't have to like that. I mean, plenty of people didn't like it with Roman. I'm not saying he's going to have as long a run as Roman did, but this Triple H era has one man at the front of it, and it's obvious that anointed person is Cody Rhodes, who is a good face representation of the company, says all the right things, looks great on the talk shows in New York and LA. I see no signs that this Cody run, while I don't think we'll see anything close to what we had with Roman, I do think we're going to see a lengthy Cody Rhodes run on top, barring injury.
Barring injury. And once again, I cannot disagree with anything you said, brother.
If anyone disagrees with what Doug and I agree on this one, let us know in the comments.
I would love to hear how you all would look at this. Me too, but not this time. Not with this match.
I can't disagree. I'd like to see him with one of the world titles. Maybe make it the one over on Raw right now, because I don't think the one on SmackDown is going anywhere. I agree, Scott. Like, kind of what we saw with AEW recently and Samoa Joe, seeing that those legacy guys that came out of Ring of Honor and the Indies and TNA hold world titles again would be pretty cool. I think AJ does have another possible one in him. I like to see Brian Danielson do the same thing in AEW, but yeah, not this time, not this match.
Yeah, once again, not this time. Yep. And Scott's in agreement. Hey, and Scott, according to Google, Jamie Hayter is just not slated to be back anytime soon. She was supposed to be back at the beginning of this year, but we are almost in May, and AEW is keeping pretty quiet about her situation, whatever it is. So if she is injured, they're keeping it quiet about that. Of course, the most recent stuff I could find was from February.
Thank you, Doug, for that follow up, making sure we get our questions answered. Maybe when Jamie comes back, she'll find Britt Baker and MJF and bring them both with her.
Well, I think MGF is going to be out for quite a while now too. I can't give some news about that. Yeah, that the people scumbag is probably going to have, well, not probably, sounds like he's going under the knife soon because rehab just did not work. So there's not a timeline for him to even return to AEW.
Unfortunately. But hey, that's all of WWE Backlash preview. Check it out. Airing from France. It's going to be exclusive on Peacock, and we will be back to see if we got any of these wrong since we're in lockstep. Let's see if they were just so logical that WWE booking does the exact same thing that we say they're going to be doing, or if they try any curveballs. We'll have the full rundown next show. But for now, we got to hit that finish and go.
Man, we're running this like a Triple H pay-per-view.
That's right. This is the new era of the Two Bros Show. Lean, mean, and efficient. Right to the point.
We are also in the Paul Triple H Levesque era of shows. Look at us.
But I gotta say that my era here is not Triple H based. My Big Finish has a lot of AEW in it. So does mine. Well, they had a big pay-per-view that because we were off and because of Mania and things, we didn't get a preview. We weren't on the air last week with our full broadcast because we wanted AEW Dynasty to have to not run opposed, that we don't want to hurt their numbers. We do not. Doug, let's start with Botch of the Week. And I think I just tipped my hat that most of my material here is AEW related.
So let me see here. I think all of my, most of it, all of it is. So let's start with Botch. And, this is a fairly innocent call out, but, the network, because what I understand, this wasn't the in-house folks. The network has got to step up. I'm sure Serena Deeb said some really awesome things when she came out to call out Tony Storm, but I have no idea what she said because I'm pretty sure they were miking the crowd and not her. And these inconsistencies are consistent with the live shows that AEW does. You've called this out before, and I thought we were better, but then I see this, and in their home, they're in Daly's place. But
if it had just affected that deep promo, it would have been bad enough. All night long for 2 whole hours, and what doesn't make as much sense is Tony Khan going on Twitter to basically say, "Hey, it sounds great in the rest of the world, just not in the United States on TBS or other partners that are airing it. It's fine." So TBS is a major network. It is a very amateurish look, regardless of whose fault it is, that they continue to have these production issues. Doug, it's my botch too. We're lockstep on this, apparently. It just bothered me because you don't have to be WWE. No one expects you to have their level. You don't have their budget or anything along those lines. You're still major league on a top 10 network. This shouldn't still be an issue. Doug, you're right there with the thumbs up. Doug's right there with the thumbs up on that. Yeah.
Do better.
No, not excusable. Do better.
Yeah.
Performance of the week, Doug. We may be in lockstep on this too.
Or we may disagree with this one because, my match, I think we're going to be in lockstep on. Performance, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'm certain we're going to be in lockstep with our match. But performance, it's I've got to give it to Tony, man. Just the Plan 9 from outer space Ed Wood selling that he did when he took that gut punch that somehow knocked him out all the way through to the Meltzer driver, which is the TK driver now. Maybe I should give it to Shad Khan because his dad was great. I mean, I was like, did they tell this man that this isn't real? Because he looked legit concerned. Maybe we should just give it to the Khan family. But Tony, I loved everything about that because it was everything that is great and bad about wrestling.
So it's hilarious because we are going to be in lockstep on all three of these things, man. But as much as I would love, I'd even had made the note in advance that I wanted to call out Swerve Strickland
Uh-huh.
and Willow,
Uh-huh.
two black performers rising to the top of the championship ranks in AEW that had long been kind of dogged by the fact
Yep.
that they weren't diverse enough or there wasn't those opportunities. They got a world champion. They got Willow as the TBS
Mhm.
champion. And then Trick Williams making a trifecta over on
Yeah.
NXT.
Yeah.
But the payoff, he slayed the dragon finally after slaying Carmelo at
Mhm.
Mania weekend. Man, there was such great stories there. But then I saw that whole bit with Tony Khan. And at first I'm like, is this my botch of the week or is this my performance of the week? Because he went down like a feather to that very weak looking punch.
Punched him with a
And then he
microphone through his
stumbles.
belly. And he sold it like he got punched in the face.
I will be honest with you. I had it as a potential botch in my notes until the following day because I'm trying to
Yes.
decide on like how I feel about it, whether that was so bad it was good or so bad it was
Yes.
just bad. Because Tony's not going to get in the ring. The payoff isn't a Vince
Mhm.
McMahon style like
No, it's not.
situation where I'm going to get in a match with Stone Cold. There's no going to be a payoff other than by proxy. And so I
Mhm.
was leaning towards, yeah, this isn't great. And then comes the NFL draft. Scott, you
Mhm.
called it out, man.
Yes. Yes, he did, Scott.
That
Yes,
is
he
a what
did.
absolutely to watch a professional wrestling promoter who also has more serious day jobs appear on ESPN in a neck brace, making these legitimate announcers have to explain to these nationwide audience that knows nothing about professional wrestling why this man is in this exaggerated comical neck brace that apparently now is being auctioned off for charity.
Oh,
um,
good.
was absolutely just gold, just
A-
pure
a-
gold.
And even have
The young man that was picked first, I
yeah,
was going to say the young man that was picked first has zero idea what a Meltzer driver is,
Mhm.
and here he's being asked about his new team and his new owner and the new ownership of what he thought about Tony Khan. And the kid is so sincerely like, man, I'm hoping he's okay, wishing him good, wishes, and you could just tell in the answer, dude has
No
no idea
clue.
who the Young
No,
Bucks are.
no clue. And even Pat McAfee has to talk about it. It
Keeping
makes me
kayfabe alive. It made me so very happy to see that level of kayfabe for all the crap we give Tony for legitimate reasons here recently. That I have to give nothing but kudos to him for the commitment to the bit, man.
absolutely. It's real to me, Kevin. It's still real to me.
And Doug, should we even talk about is there any debate as to what the match
There
of the week was?
there cannot be when it is being called the greatest match in Northern American history of wrestling. And I would go as far to say maybe the history of wrestling around the globe. But when you have two greats like Osprey and Brian Danielson in a ring, how could it not be? I
You
I mean,
know, we could have called what the match of the week was
we
last
could have
week.
we could have totally
I
done it.
mean,
Here's
but
what
to be
here's what you're
truthful
getting.
about
Yeah.
it, more often than not, expectations fail to live up to the hype. This one lived up to it and more. Meltzer called it the best match ever on American soil. I don't know that I can quantify that, but I can say for sure that it's the best match this year. It's one of the best matches I've seen in some time. It's a match of the year contender. I can't imagine how much else is going to top what we saw. Meltzer gave it 6.5 stars, I believe.
Mhm.
It was on every level a success. Every level, what they had hoped to achieve, these two men went out there and superseded whatever they'd hoped to achieve, helped by a hot crowd that was into every last thing
Yes.
that they did. So for anything that people can criticize about Tony and his booking and the TV product, and a lot of that is legit criticisms, he still continues to hit it out the park when it comes to booking pay-per-views. And that match is an example of why. He's got a lot of great toys to play with, and these two rose to the occasion. Already makes me want to see match number 2 in this series.
Yes, 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 and yes. And speaking of talk, of you just sticking to the bit. Did you see the media scrum where
Oh
Osprey
yeah,
comes out and talks for a while? It's just give this man an Oscar. I mean, he's
yeah,
continued to sell. Retiring his was it Stormbreaker 91? Is that what he calls that Tiger
yeah,
Driver? Yeah,
yeah. After
we
seeing what it did to poor Bryan Danielson, he's never
right.
doing that move again.
And then just genuinely concerned and not even wanting to talk about it, and and even just brushing off the whole dig at Triple H that he did during the Charleston show that we were at, where he is throwing some shade at Triple H for grinding nonsense, and just being remorseful about all of it, all the way through to Wednesday when he's going to hit the move again. He's like, oh no, wait, I was retiring this. It's just that muscle memory. Will Ospreay is Will Ospreay. That's all I can say
Let's
about him,
be
man.
let's be clear here. Will Ospreay is one of the best talents in the world today.
Yes.
Bryan Danielson is one of the greatest to ever do it. The expectations were high, almost too high, to think they could actually achieve it, and they achieved it. Go watch
Yes.
it if you haven't. It's worth the price you pay. Whatever platform you watch AEW's pay-per-views on, it is worth it if you've not seen this match. I actually am now so excited just talking about it with my friend here that I want to go back and watch it again. So maybe that's what I want to do. Doug, it's time to say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody. Go watch some wrestling.
We'll see you next week. We'll be giving our thoughts on Backlash. See you next Sunday.
See ya.